I've never really told many people about this because even now I'm not sure what I experienced. Maybe there's a logical explanation for it. Maybe there isn't. All I know is that it happened, and I still think about it whenever someone mentions that apartment. This happened about 6 years ago when I was 13 years old. I'm 19 now, but I remember every detail like it was yesterday. Back then, my parents both worked night shifts on weekends, so every Saturday I stayed at my older cousin's apartment until Sunday evening. She lived alone in an older apartment complex that had probably been there since the early 80s. It wasn't a bad place, just old. The elevators were slow, the lights in the hallways flickered sometimes, and everything echoed in a weird way. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor. Directly across from her was another apartment that had been empty for as long as anyone could remember. The previous tenant, an older woman, had died there years before, and for whatever reason, nobody ever moved in afterward. I didn't think much of it at first. The first couple of weekends were completely normal. Then I started noticing something. Almost every night, usually sometime after 2 in the morning, I would hear someone walking down the hallway. It wasn't loud, just slow footsteps that would stop right outside my cousin's front door. They would stay there for maybe 20 or 30 seconds. Then the footsteps would continue down the hallway until I couldn't hear them anymore. The strange part was that whenever I looked through the peephole, there was never anyone there. Not once. I mentioned it to my cousin, but she laughed and said old buildings make weird noises all the time. Pipes, elevators, people upstairs. It could be anything.
I tried believing that. A few weeks later, I started waking up in the middle of the night for no reason. I wasn't having nightmares. I would just suddenly open my eyes feeling like someone had been standing in the room watching me. Every single time. I'd look around, check the closet, check the bathroom, even look behind the curtains. Nothing. Eventually, I convinced myself I was just freaking myself out. Then came summer vacation. We watched movies, ordered pizza, played video games, and stayed up way too late. By the 4th night, I had almost forgotten about the footsteps. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up because I thought I heard someone whispering. At first, I figured the TV had been left on, but when I sat up, the apartment was completely silent. Then I heard it again. Not words, just 2 people quietly talking somewhere outside. I walked into the living room. My cousin was asleep on the couch. The whispering was definitely coming from the hallway. I don't know why I did it, but I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds before turning away. That's when I heard a soft click behind me. I froze. The sound had come from the front door. Slowly, I looked down. The doorknob was moving. Not violently, just enough to tell me someone on the other side was trying it. Back and forth, very slowly. I couldn't breathe. I whispered my cousin's name, but nothing came out. After a few seconds, the movement stopped. I finally managed to wake her up. She switched on every light in the apartment and opened the front door.
Nobody was there. The hallway was completely empty. She even checked the stairwell. Nothing. I barely slept the rest of the night. The next morning, one of the older neighbors stopped us in the parking lot. He asked if we'd heard someone in the hallway overnight. My cousin told him about the doorknob. The man went quiet for a second before saying something that made my stomach drop. He said several people over the years had complained about hearing footsteps outside their doors around 3 in the morning. Some even reported someone trying their doorknobs. But whenever anyone looked outside, there was never anyone there. A few months later, my cousin moved to a different apartment closer to her job. While helping her pack, we ran into the building manager. He mentioned they were finally cleaning out the apartment across the hall after years of sitting empty. Out of curiosity, I asked why nobody had ever rented it. He hesitated for a second before saying the previous tenant had lived there alone. According to him, one night she called building security because she believed someone kept trying to get into her apartment. Security checked the hallway several times. They never found anyone. The next morning, she was found dead inside. The doctor said she died of natural causes. Maybe that's all it was. Maybe the strange noises had nothing to do with her. But I've never forgotten one thing. The night someone turned our doorknob, I looked through the peephole first. The hallway was completely empty. There wasn't a single place anyone could have hidden. And yet, seconds later, someone was clearly standing on the other side of that door.
My name is Ria, and this happened when I was 16 years old. I'm 22 now, but I still refuse to walk through my apartment complex after midnight, no matter how safe everyone says it is. Back then, my family lived in a large gated community with several apartment buildings surrounding a central park. It was the kind of place where kids played outside until late in the evening, and the security guards knew almost every resident by name. My parents trusted the place completely, which meant I had a lot of freedom. During summer vacation, my best friend Nisha and I had a habit of taking late-night walks whenever we couldn't sleep. We'd usually grab cold drinks from the vending machine near the clubhouse and spend an hour talking before heading home. One Friday night, just after midnight, we decided to do the same thing. Everything felt normal. The pathways were lit by tall street lights, the trees barely moved in the warm breeze, and somewhere in the distance we could hear a television playing from an open window. Instead of walking around the park, we decided to take a shortcut behind the maintenance building. It was a narrow road that very few people used because it led to a locked service gate at the back of the complex. As we got closer, something immediately felt wrong. The entire road was empty. Not a single parked car. Not even a stray dog. Halfway down the road, we noticed a shopping cart sitting in the middle of the pavement. It looked old and rusty, like it had been left there for years. We laughed about how random it looked and kept walking.
Then, we heard it. The sound of metal wheels rolling. Neither of us was touching the cart. It slowly rolled a few feet on its own before coming to a stop. We both froze. There wasn't enough wind to move it. Nisha whispered that we should just turn around. Before we could, I noticed someone standing near the locked service gate. It was a woman. She wore a faded gray hoodie with the hood pulled over her head. She wasn't moving. She just stood there facing us, with both hands hidden inside the front pocket of the hoodie. At first, I thought maybe she lived in the complex. Then I realized something. She wasn't blinking. Not once. My stomach dropped. Nisha quietly said, "Let's go." We turned around and started walking back without saying another word. After a few seconds, we heard footsteps behind us. Slow, steady, matching our pace exactly. I looked over my shoulder. The woman was following us. She wasn't running. She wasn't even walking normally. Her arms stayed perfectly still against her sides, while the rest of her body moved toward us in short, stiff steps. It looked completely unnatural. We started walking faster. So did she. Without saying a word, without making any expression, just following. When we reached the end of the road, I risked another glance behind me. She had closed the distance by at least 20 feet. That's when she smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It spread across her face so slowly that it made my skin crawl. Then she reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out something wrapped in a dirty white cloth. She held it out toward us without saying a single word. Nisha grabbed my arm and we both started running.
The footsteps behind us became much louder. I could hear them slapping against the pavement. Every time I looked ahead, I expected to see another resident. There was nobody.
The entire complex suddenly felt deserted. We sprinted toward the security office near the main entrance. Just before we reached it, I made the mistake of looking back one last time. The woman had stopped running. She was standing directly beneath one of the streetlights, completely still, watching us. The cloth she'd been carrying was lying on the ground beside her. The security guards immediately came outside after hearing us yell. Two of them grabbed flashlights and hurried toward the maintenance road, while another stayed with us. We pointed toward the woman. She was gone. The guards searched the entire area for almost 30 minutes. There was no sign of anyone. The only thing they found was the white cloth lying in the middle of the road. One of the guards picked it up using a stick. Inside was a collection of old apartment keys attached to rusted keychains. There must have been at least 30 of them. None of the keys matched any apartments in our complex. The guards assumed someone had dumped them there and threw everything away. A few days later, I mentioned the incident to one of the older maintenance workers. His face immediately changed. He told me that years earlier, before the apartments were built, there had been a row of small rental houses on that same piece of land. One by one, the houses had been demolished. Before they were torn down, the caretaker collected every tenant's spare key in a white cloth so nothing would be left behind. The caretaker disappeared before the demolition was finished. Nobody ever found him. I don't know if the woman had anything to do with that story. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But even now, whenever I visit my parents late at night, I avoid that maintenance road completely. Every so often, I'll glance in that direction from a distance. And sitting in the middle of the empty road, there's always a shopping cart.